Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me again, and welcome to another installment of the Buckeyes at Home series. Specifically, welcome to video 2 of Doodle Days with Zach. I'm so glad to have you here in the studio with me again. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to doodle with you again today. So in this video, we're going to be focusing on how to draw kind of cartoony looking birds, like my bluejay here on the sign. So if you recall last week, I was talking a little bit about some of the cartoons I've been working on lately. I've been looking at this bird for a little bit. I've actually colored it in since our last video. And I thought I'd share some other cartoons with you in my sketchbook. So I've got this hawk I've been working on, kind of rough, still need to draw some feathers, but it's a work in progress. Same goes for this owl that I've been working on too. I love owls, and I gave this one a little bow tie, which I thought was kind of fun. You have complete freedom with these drawings, so you can draw whatever bird you want today, although I'm probably going to be drawing my bluejay. So when I draw these birds, I want you to think about, and as you draw them too, think about some of the different stories you can make for these creatures. I want you to think about some of the different stories you can come up with to give these characters life. Now, before we begin, I want to know, what are some books you can think of that feature birds as characters? Excellent choices! Those are some great books. When I think of birds in books, I think of The Pigeon in the Pigeon series by Mo Willems, like Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, or I think of the owl in the Harry Potter series, if you're reading something a bit more advanced. So, I think that birds are in a lot of stories, so I think you can make a lot of stories out of birds that you draw. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and we're going to start by talking about a concept called abstraction. So I've got a bird. It's not a real bird, but it is an ornament that I keep up in a tree nearby. So this is an owl here. And what I want to do is I want to break it down to the shapes that make it up. This is abstraction. We're taking a more complex form, like a bird, and breaking it down to more simple forms to make up that image. So I want you to think about the different shapes that you see in this bird. What do you see? Excellent, I see a lot of the same. So I see some circles around the eyes. The eyes themselves are round, so they could be circles. The head's kind of a rectangle shape. It's kind of a square head. But then it has these little points here that could be like triangles for the ear tufts. And the body is pretty round, so that might be a circle. And then the wings are an upside-down teardrop shape. So I'm seeing just a lot of shapes, and we're going to want to think about those shapes. You probably saw this when I was focusing on YOLO, that I was looking at some of the different shapes that made up YOLO a bit when I was working on that doodle last time. So we're going to be doing that today with the birds that we draw. But before we begin, I want to give you a moment to go find some art supplies. So I want you to click on the pause button, and I want you to go find some paper, pens, pencils, colored pencils, markers, crayons, whatever you want to use to doodle today. And when you find your art supplies, just click on the play button to resume our video. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad that you found some great art supplies. So what we're going to do is I'm going to erase my board here, and we're going to get started by drawing some cool cartoon birds and start to think about some of the stories you can create with these birds. So we're going to be thinking a lot about that today. Now, as I erase, get ready to draw some interesting shapes that you're going to use to make up your own bird. And you don't have to draw the bluejay I'm drawing. For instance, if you want to draw a cardinal, they're very much the same shape, just a lot more red and maybe with a bit of a wider beak. So just keep that in mind. Now, because I'm going to be drawing a bluejay, I'm going to use a blue marker. So I'm going to start by drawing a circle. And I want you to do the same. Now there's my circle. It's not a perfect circle, it's kind of choppy, but that's okay. I think that it's really nice to work with what you draw on your own. So from here I'm going to add, bluejays have kind of a crest. So it looks kind of like a triangle that's kind of at a weird angle. So I've got this going out, kind of like a fin on like a shark or something, or on a fish. So we've got this crest here. I'm going to add a bit of line detail here just to kind of fill it in. And then from here, I want to draw the neck. So I'm drawing kind of a rounded edged square here. And then I'm going to draw the bottom of that square. I'm not going to draw the top because I don't need to at this point. The circle is serving as the top of the square. But right now we've got an interesting shape for a bluejay head. So to get started on the bluejay's facial details, we need to think about the beak. So the beak looks kind of like a triangle, right? But on a bluejay, it's kind of a thin triangle, so I'm going to draw that now. Very, very thin and kind of long triangle, too. Not too long, but maybe just about so. There we go. So we've got a little triangle there, and now we need to draw our eye. Now, you might want to draw your bird a little more realistically. You can draw a tinier eye. I like to draw a big eye on my cartoons. So I'm going to do that here. I'm just using that same big marker and drawing another circle. So I've got that circle. Now we need to work on the iris. So we need to color in that eye. And if you recall in the last video, the eye is kind of the window to the soul, right? It can show a lot of different emotions that you want to show in your cartoons. So if I had maybe some smaller irises in the eyes, it might show that this bird is distressed or maybe upset about something. But I want my bird to look kind of happy, so I'm going to draw really big irises. So it's going to look kind of alert. So for me, that's going to make the rest of the eye look kind of like a crescent moon. So I'm going to start coloring in my eye. I'm not going to reflect any light in it in this video, but you can do that in your own drawing. You have absolute freedom. So I've got my eye there. It's looking pretty good. But with Bluejays, there's some different facial markings that we want to keep in mind as we draw. So for instance, one thing that I like to think about is they have kind of like this chin strap shape. It starts out as like a little black triangle on the back of their head. But then, if you draw along the edge of that circle that we drew to start with the head, and then connect it to the other corner of the square, it'll make that chin strap shape, and we've got one of our markings done. They also have little markings right beside their eye that look kind of like little lines there. So we've got our head. Now, if you're using a pencil, you can go over this with ink or a marker. If you're not, I like the look of shapes in my drawings, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to erase some of these lines here, just to show you what this Bluejay would look like finished. And I'm also going to start coloring in the head. This is my favorite part of a drawing, so I'm getting a little excited here. I'm going to draw in some lines. If you recall my style, I use a lot of lines to show color as I work on my drawings and my doodles, just to fill in that space. So there we go. I've got a Bluejay head. Now, as I draw this, I can hear some of the Bluejays outside right now of my window. You probably can't hear it in the video, but I have a lot of Bluejays outside of my window in my studio. I'm going to start thinking about the body, though. So what was the shape of the owl's wing when we were looking at that bird earlier? Awesome, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, it's an upside-down teardrop shape. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. Now, if you want to have like a different position for your bird, whether you want it to be standing or leaning, I'm going to draw mine leaning a little bit. But for standing, that upside-down teardrop shape should kind of come down at an angle, kind of like that. But if you want to draw yours leaning over a little bit, maybe it's inspecting something, maybe it's looking for something, you can draw it at an angle up. So I'm drawing my teardrop shape up this way, this time. Now, with Bluejays, they have a little bar here within their wing, and I'm going to start filling this in. Coloring's just the best part. So I'm going to draw in some lines here just to fill in the space, give it a little bit of color. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to draw the Bluejay's chest. So I'm going to draw a little half circle, and it's going to connect to that wing. Then I'm also going to color that in. Now, they have kind of a white chest, so I'm just going to draw some blue lines and leave that space empty on my board. Now I'm working on the tail feathers, and I'm just doing a few quick lines going up at an angle right behind the wing there. Gives it a little bit of a different perspective, shows us what's behind the wing. And then I want to put in my legs. Now, Bluejays have black legs, but also bird legs work a little bit differently than our own. So they come down at a weird angle. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. They bend kind of backwards. So I've got my legs drawn. Now I want to get our toes drawn in. So birds have 3 in the front, 1 in back. So we've got our 3 little lines there, and then the 1 in back. So there's our Bluejay. So it looks pretty good, right? But I want to ask you, what do you think it's missing? I feel like something's missing in this drawing. What should we add? Those are some awesome ideas. So when I think about what we can add to this drawing, I think about maybe adding a background to it. Maybe it's standing on a tree like some Bluejays do, or maybe it's doing something kind of silly. I think for my Bluejay, I'm going to have it riding on a skateboard. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. That's kind of like a little square with rounded edges. Kind of looks like a hot dog. So I've got my skateboard drawn. We need to add the wheels. So those are going to be two little circles here, and then I'm going to color in the top. Skateboards usually have kind of a black surface on top. So I'm going to draw in some black lines just to make this look more real. Kind of cartoony, but a little bit more realistic. Now, this Bluejay looks like it's flying on the skateboard, right? So what we should do is maybe add a line behind it to suggest that it's riding on a surface. But we want our Bluejay to look kind of fast on its skateboard. So I'm going to draw some lines behind it. And those are going to be some speed lines here, just to show it's moving real fast. Just to give some direction for the wind. But at this point, I've got my doodle. I could add a lot more to it, but at this point I'm going to call it quits on this doodle. I think it looks pretty good the way it is. Now, what does your doodle look like? Can you hold up your doodles to the screen for me? Wow, those look excellent. Great work. I really love the direction you went with on that. Now, does your bird look like my bird? Probably not, but that's okay. It looks 100% like your bird. And just remember that we all have our own different art styles, and that's what makes art so cool. We all contribute something that's uniquely our own. So at this point, I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and please leave any comments or questions in the comment section below. Feel free to email me some of the pictures you're working on, or maybe some of the stories you're working on. I'd love to read through some of those. And look out for the next video. There will be another Doodle Days with Zach coming out soon. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic day.